Welcome to LA for you out-of-towners. How many people are from out of town? I'm looking at Dan Lau. Woo! So many people flying in from this like magical conference called AWP. So we're in the presence of all these writers, all these artists, and thank you so much. So my name is Kathy Lin Che. I am the Events and Publicity Associate at Kaya Press. Just a little bit about Kaya. Kaya has been publishing books of the Asian Pacific diaspora since 1994. Our catalog includes R. Zamora Lindmark's Rolling the R's, and we celebrated his 20th anniversary of that publishing that book last night. Ishali Park, Shalia Patel, Gene Oishi, and the list goes on and on. After the reading, you can stop by the book table and next to where the authors can, hang out and sign your books and check out our books. They're very beautiful. You'll also see lit in color postcards for your own you can write. After this reading, if you're so inspired, you can write your own writings after writers of color. So we have a whole week of events planned. So tomorrow at USC, for those who, flew in and you're gonna attend this conference, or if you're in town and you just want some space to do some writing, we have a write-a-thon. So from 11 to 4 at USC, we have a day-long kind of program of people who are jumping in to teach kind of generative writing so that you can spark new writing. Our own April Heck is going to be there doing a workshop at noon, so you can stop by and write some poetry or with her. And so also, if you're attending AWP, which is this annual conference of about 10,000 plus people, converging on the LA Convention Center. April was talking about how do you recognize writers? Do they all carry tote bags? Do they? I love tote bags. So also Kaya Press has a new tote bag, so please pick one up. Yeah, and and so on Thursday we're hosting 2 panels, one on hybridity and another on queer POC theater artists. And we are also hosting with Kundiman and the Asian American Writers Workshop, the first ever Asian American Writers Caucus, because it's an election year. It's going to be from 6 to 7:15, and it's going to be all kinds of Asian American writers in one room. On Friday, we're going to be presenting a never-before attempted event called Literoki. It's a literary karaoke event wherein people sing with the words descending and everybody singing along, and then they just go into a reading. So Edlin is going to be there performing. The song's a big secret, so you have to show up to find out. So it's in. I'm very sorry for butchering this, but it's Kapistahan Grill in historic Filipino town. And it's from 9 to 11 p.m. and it has like good food and beer. So check us out at kaya.com for more information. So thank you so much for coming out to the Japanese American National Museum. This is a wonderful intergenerational reading featuring the work of Japanese and Japanese diasporic writers from diverse backgrounds, all bringing their stories into the room. I was thinking that given our political climate, it would be interesting to have the readings centered on sort of the themes of inclusion and exclusion. Everyone will read or perform between 5-10 minutes, and the order is alphabetical by last name. And everyone will also begin with a brief piece by a writer or artist of color that has influenced them. We're trying to center the works of writers of color and want to bring in as many voices into the room as we can. The featured writers' performers tonight are April Naoko Heck, Naomi Hirahara, traci kato-kiriyama, Leza Lowitz, Kat McDowell, and David Mura. Gene Oishi was supposed to make it out tonight. He's a renowned Nisei journalist who published his first novel, Drum Bebop, when he was in his 80s. Drum Bebop won the 2016 AAAS award for Best Book in Prose. And unfortunately, he lives in Baltimore, and he couldn't make it out because he had a chest infection and had to sort of go to the hospital. But he's better now. He wrote us to tell us that he sends his love and wishes. And in his stead, I have a special guest who's going to read some of his work. So, one of you might be that special guest. Who knows? Maybe yourself. You will be called upon to read Gene's work. That'll be amazing, right? So thank you so much. I just really think that this is an amazing space to have conversations that we don't normally have. Everybody comes from such a different background, and I just am very grateful for everybody's presence here. So I'm going to introduce our first reader, April. April Naoko Heck was born in Tokyo and moved to the US with her family when she was 7. A Kundimon Fellow, she's been awarded residencies from the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts and Vermont Studio Center. A Nuclear Family, her first collection of poems, was released by Upset Press in 2014. And April and I used to meet every Saturday or Sunday, and we would sit together for a couple hours to do what we called the po-biz, which is, poetry business, including answering emails and things like that. So, I mean, she's a dear person to me, and everybody please give her a warm welcome, April.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. So, I'm going to read Persimmons by Li-Young Lee, and it's actually 30 years old this year, and he's a very influential writer when I was in school. Persimmons. In 6th grade, Mrs. Walker slapped the back of my head and made me stand in the corner for not knowing the difference between persimmon and precision. How to choose persimmons. This is precision. Ripe ones are soft and brown spotted. Sniff the bottoms. The sweet one will be fragrant. How to eat. Put the knife away. Lay down newspaper. Peel the skin tenderly, not to tear the meat. Chew the skin, suck it, and swallow. Now, eat the meat of the fruit, so sweet, all of it, to the heart. Donna undresses. Her stomach is white. In the yard, dewy and shivering with crickets, we lie naked, face up, face down. I teach her Chinese. Crickets. Chew, chew. Do, I've forgotten. Naked. I've forgotten. Ni, wo, you and me. I part her legs, remember to tell her she is as beautiful as the moon. Other words that got me into trouble were fight and fright, wren and yarn. Fight was what I did when I was frightened. Fright was what I felt when I was fighting. Wrens are small, plain birds. Yarn is what one knits with. Wrens are soft as yarn. My mother made birds out of yarn. I loved to watch her tie the stuff. A bird, a rabbit, a wee man. Mrs. Walker brought a persimmon to class and cut it up so everyone could taste a Chinese apple. Knowing it wasn't ripe or sweet, I didn't eat, but watched the other faces. My mother said every persimmon has a sun inside, something golden, glowing, warm as my face. Once, in the cellar, I found 2 wrapped in newspaper, forgotten and not yet ripe. I took them and set both on my bedroom windowsill, where each morning a cardinal sang, "The sun, the sun." Finally understanding he was going blind, my father sat up all one night, waiting for a song, a ghost. I gave him the persimmons, swelled, heavy as sadness, and sweet as love. This year, in the muddy lighting of my parents' cellar, I rummage, looking for something I lost. My father sits on the tired wooden stairs, black cane between his knees, hand over hand, gripping the handle. He's so happy that I've come home. I ask how his eyes are. A stupid question. All gone, he answers. Under some blankets, I find a box. Inside the box, I find 3 scrolls. I sit beside him and untie 3 paintings by my father, hibiscus leaf and a white flower, 2 cats preening, 2 persimmons, so full they want to drop from the cloth. He raises both hands to touch the cloth, asks, "Which is this?" "This is persimmons, Father." "Oh." The feel of the wolf tail on the silk, the strength, the tense precision in the wrist. I painted them hundreds of times, eyes closed. These I painted blind. Some things never leave a person, scent of the hair of one you love, the texture of persimmons in your palm, the ripe weight. So on the theme of inclusion and exclusion, I'm going to read 2 poems, and the first one is called 9/11/11. And actually, before I say this, or read this, I want to say that it's such an honor to read with David Mura. When I was in school, I read Turning Japanese, and it's kind of like I feel like someone should pinch me because I never thought I would be here in this museum, in this space, getting to read with you. So you were the first Japanese American author. It was the first time I saw myself and my family and my history in a book. So thank you so much, really. I don't know if I can infuse that gratitude and excitement with this, is what I really feel inside. So thank you for this honor. 9/11/11. Upon being asked to write a 9/11 poem, I consulted a recent National Book Award winner. I stood on the wide beach and asked the ocean for its best advice. I am not up to this task, I told my future poem. What can I possibly say? But you've written about war before, someone said. I think it was me or the poem. Your great-grandfather, a survivor. Your great-grandmother. Or your great-grandmother, a survivor. Your great-grandfather, lost in the Pacific War. I tried to outrun the hurricane. I shored up my doors. How about writing about fathers instead, said my poem. A hardworking father, say, driving a taxi every day. I don't want to be sad, I said. My father passed away, and every father reminds me of him. I hate you, poem, for wanting to know the truth. The truth is, I trusted the sky. I trusted it wouldn't throw things at us, a bitter God hurling stones. Remember that story I said to no one, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson? The townspeople kill one of their own. And remember the Canada geese incident, I said again to no one. Some officials thought geese caused the plane crash in the Hudson. Some officials gassed all the geese. And one day the lake was quiet. What is wrong with you? I said, confusing my pronouns. We're talking about people, not geese, not gas, not Jesus. Where were we? Gas chambers, flight, falling. And the poem said, how will you make sense of geese and fathers and planes? Why not, while you're at it, mention how boys called you chink on the playground? Poem, you are a fucking mess, I said. Oh no, I am beautiful, it said. I'm the truest thing you have said for days. 9/12/11. What I meant by the hundreds of Canada geese disappearing is intuition, an obsession. I couldn't let it go. Extermination as metaphor, but for what? For whom? The lake was quiet one day. I'd hardly realized my love for the gaggle of voices, the brown bodies cluttering blue, until they were gone. "They're rats with wings," the geese hater said. "Did you forget about the crash?" So I wrote a letter to the paper. "Why would you gas them all?" I said. "You, with my taxes, my vote." "Take them upstate," I said. "Take them to Canada." "They're migratory, they'll come back," the hater said. "Stop with your breadcrumbs, your sentiment." I know a monk, a groundskeeper of a school. He's a keeper and killer of geese who pack his ponds and soccer fields. Every springtime he shakes their eggs. The scrambled miniature suns will never hatch. A metaphor for what? A question of souls? Or how I can't feel the shell-sharp glass? I can't feel the sting and ash. I'm a bird watcher, and hardly skilled at that. No binoculars, no field guide. I like to take walks. I like to look at the lake and leaves and birds, nature's subtractions and additions. If you knew someone in that plane, people said, you would not be so foolish. You with your simple heart. You with your little dog. Open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, April. I love that you started with persimmons and then ended with your poem. It's just like, it brings such tenderness and such humor to the room. So thank you very much. Our next reader is Naomi Hirahara. She was born in Pasadena, California. Woo woo, Northeast LA. I was born in Northeast. I grew up in Highland Park, so it's like lots of pride, you know. Her father was also born in California, but was taken to Hiroshima as an infant. He was only miles away from the epicenter of the atomic bombing in 1945, yet survived. Naomi's mother, Mayumi, or May, was born in Hiroshima and lost her father in the blast. Naomi is the Edgar Award-winning author of the Mass Arai mystery series, which features a Japanese-American gardener and an atomic bomb survivor who solves crimes. Books in the series have been translated into Japanese, Korean, and French. A former editor of the largest Japanese-American newspaper in the U.S., she has also released a number of nonfiction works, and her short stories have been published here and there. And for more information, go to her website, www.naomihirahara.com. And she's just, I saw her last night at an event, and she's here tonight, and then she's just gonna keep showing up in my life as this warm presence. So everybody please give her a warm round of applause, Naomi Hirahara.
Gray-haired lady has stamina. I need it for this week, right? Okay, I'm going to start off with a very short excerpt from A Rage in Harlem by Chester Himes. And if you are math challenged like I am, just pay attention to the numbers and it'll make more sense to you. Okay. Hank counted the stack of money. It was a lot of money. 150 brand new $10 bills. He looked at Jackson through cold yellow eyes. You give me 15 C's, right? He wanted it straight. It was strictly business. He was a small, dapper man with mottled brown skin and thin, straightened hair. He looked like business. That's right, Jackson said. $1,500. It was strictly business with Jackson, too. Jackson was a short, black, fat man with purple-red gums and pearly white teeth made for laughing. But Jackson wasn't laughing. It was too serious for Jackson to be laughing. Jackson was only 28 years old, but it was such serious business that he looked a good 10 years older. You want me to make you 15 G's, right? Hank kept after him. That's right, Jackson said. $15,000. So I wonder what they're cooking up over there in Harlem. Okay, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my first book in the Masarai mystery series called Summer of the Big Bachi. And bachi means what goes around comes around. And I will just, I'm glad that Kathy mentioned the whole regional pride thing. The only thing I'll say about this scene is it takes place in Altadena, California, which is an unincorporated area just north of Pasadena. By the time Haruo was released, it was already 9 o'clock. It was way past breakfast, and Mas was hungry. I'm stopping over at the store, he told Haruo, who was resting in the passenger seat of his car. Mas was driving and sped to the old Honda's limit, causing the car to tremble and cough like Mari's dog in its last days. Mas parked in front of Frank's, a plain white concrete building with barred windows. Haruo was sleeping now, so Mas entered the liquor store alone. Hey, Mas, haven't seen you around in a while. A black man with grizzled hair stood behind a counter surrounded by rows of potato chip bags and shiny bottles of distilled spirits. He wore a short-sleeved cotton shirt over a white undershirt curved at the neck. Mas carried a couple of six-packs of beer from the refrigerated cases to the cash register and placed them on the counter beside a fishbowl filled with wrapped bubble gum. Starting early, Mas. Frank punched buttons on his old-fashioned cash register. So what, pack of marbles? Nah, not today. Mas pulled down a large bag of tortilla chips from a rack next to the counter. Don't tell me you're quitting. Heck, I should start selling those patches of nicotine gum. Can make a bundle, I think. The cash register rang, spitting out the bottom drawer. $9.90, Frank said, collecting Mas's $20 bill. As he made change, he asked, Hey, by the way, you see Yano's kids anymore? Ma shook his head. The Yanos had owned an old rickety store next door full of pickled plums and dried seaweed. Mr. Yano had been tall for a Japanese. Most of his teeth were rotten, but that hadn't stopped him from smiling all the time. Yeah, I've been thinking about them. That was a shame, I tell you. Now, why would anyone go and shoot that old man for $50, no less? That Mr. Yano, he wouldn't have hurt a fly. Hey, Frank-san, he called out to me anytime I come through the door. He had some nasty stuff in there. Long pickles and this mean brown stinking stuff. What do you call it? Tsukemono. Yeah, tsukimono. Oh, wee. He'd always pick that stuff up and shake it in my face. Frank lifted the six-packs into a brown paper bag. And remember how Yano liked your daughter? He would call something every time he saw her. What was it again? Mas hugged the bag of six-packs, feeling the coldness against his chest. It was that word, you know, for daughter. Huh, Mas? Daughter? As Mas pulled the door open, Frank spoke again, this time louder. Oh, now I remember. Musume, wasn't it? Haruo awoke when Mas climbed into the car with the beer and chips. After they got back on the road, Mas scowled. That old man talked too much. Now he going on and on about Yano-san. Yano? Oh, yeah, Yano. Haruo patted down his strip of hair. That was so kawaiso. Was going to retire, huh? Remember, we all went to the Huntington to give blood for Yano-san. You got all dizzy, almost got sick. Mas had agreed to do it only because Chizuko had pushed him. Then later he found out that his blood type, AB, was not even compatible with Yano's. Yeah, all for nothing. Not for nothing. I mean, Yano didn't make it, but maybe you helped some other fella. Mas cringed to think that his blood was now pulsing in a stranger's veins and heart. Even me, I plan to give my body to doctors after I die. Haruo opened up the bag of tortilla chips and shoved some into his mouth. They're gonna take it? Oh, yeah. Who wouldn't? Everyone wants to know what's the matter. Some people ask right out. You know those Hakujins. What happened to your face? I used to say, bomb, World War II. Then the people got real quiet, didn't want to talk no more. Then I started changing my story. Car crash, wife got mad, fire. People start nodding their head, telling me about the same kind of accident their brother's sister-in-law was in. Mas didn't know how Haruo was going to help anybody by giving his body to science, but there was no use asking more questions. The ride back home was quiet, aside from Haruo's licking his fingers, one finger at a time. "You're lucky, Mas," Haruo said finally. "Huh?" "You got no mark on you." Haruo folded over the top edge of the plastic bag. "It's like it never happened." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. And I'm very pleased to introduce our next reader, Traci Kato-Kiriyama. Traci invited me over to her house for Whiskey Wednesdays, but it's not what you think. It's like a writing time. It's not, sort of like loosened up writing time. It's very serious, So it's that kind of generosity and surrounding herself with community and sort of like working with all types of communities. She had just met me. She's like, "Come over," So I sat next to her, and I hadn't written a poem in so long, and that's when it's like, so when you're so busy doing other work, it's like in community, that's when the magic happens. So thanks, Traci. So Traci is a multidisciplinary artist, arts educator, and community organizer, and founder of the Tuesday Night Project, free public art venue and art and community space dedicated to presenting artists, community organizers, and information for people interested in furthering their community engagement and creative work. Author of a recently published collection of poetry, Signaling, Traci tours to universities, libraries, and community events, presenting readings and workshops to diverse audiences, from performers to youth educators, high school students to senior citizens. A passionate theater performer and writer, Traci thrives on the challenges of collaborative creation for the stage. And she's working on, I'm interested to see what she's doing, because she was definitely working on a theater piece when I sat next to her. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Traci. Everybody give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kaya. For those of you from out of town, welcome to Los Angeles. Woo! I'm going to read, I couldn't help myself. I wanted to read like 3 different people, but I trimmed it down to 2. One is a very, very short play from Susan Laurie Parks, 365 Days, 365 Plays. Number 21 is called Paper Tomatoes. A strong man strides in, sits on a crate. Immediately, people come in and throw wads of paper at him. This goes on for quite some time. Then they leave. He sits there. Strong man, rest. He uses all his strength to hold back his tears. Scene. Then I'm going to read a little bit from A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. In a small place, people cultivate small events. The small event is isolated, blown up, turned over and over, and then absorbed into the everyday, so that at any moment it can and will roll off the inhabitants of the small place's tongues. For the people in a small place, every event is a domestic event. The people in a small place cannot see themselves in a larger picture. They cannot see that they might be part of a chain of something, anything. The people in a small place see the event in the distance heading directly towards them, and they say, "I see the thing, and it is heading towards me." The people in a small place then experience the event as if it were sitting on top of their heads, their shoulders, and it weighs them down. This enormous burden that is the event, so that they cannot breathe properly, and they cannot think properly, and they say, "This thing that was only coming towards me is now on top of me. And they live like that until eventually they absorb the event and it becomes a part of them, a part of who and what they really are. And they are complete in that way until another event comes along and the process begins again. Jamaica Kincaid, a small place. I think I was drawn to those, long essay and then a short play, partly in relation to what I had already planned to present in prepping for my manuscript for Writ Large Press, which I'm here representing as well as Tuesday Night Project. This may or may not go in, but and then part of it is in a play, the thing that I was working on. So, but you know, Jamaica Kincaid was like accused of like never coming away from her anger in her writing, and I was like, that's such a compliment, like, right? Like we should always be evolving and finding joy, but we should always have something to be totally outraged by, right? Because this is the world. So, this is part like dialogue, part poem, letter, part, you know, fragment. And for the dialogue part, I could just do like me, Uncle Joe, me, Uncle Joe. But it'd kind of be better, right, if like we had someone be Uncle Joe, right? Yeah. So is it too much, Soundmaster, to use the mic right here? Is that cool? Yeah? I don't know. Can you see me? Yeah, I see a thumbs up. Scott Okamoto, the wonderful writer, also from Pasadena. So, yeah. Thank you, Scott. I totally put him on the spot with this. All right. Destination of publication. Through the Fire column for the Rafushimpo, a newspaper for the Japanese and Japanese American community throughout the United States. Title, as yet untitled. Genre, creative nonfiction that wishes it was just fiction. Dialogue of inspiration. Scene 1, somewhere in Los Angeles, December 2015, some months before Vigil Against Islamophobia. Me and an uncle in a living room facing the flat screen TV. Me rewinding the VHS tape of the vigil in front of the Japanese American National Museum, organized by members of the JA community just days after the September 11 attacks in 2001. Hey, Uncle Joe.
Hey, Trace.
VCR's fixed.
Good.
I wanted you to see this old footage. It's from the vigil right after 9/11 outside of JANM. Remember that?
I remember. That's when your auntie broke her wrist. I told her not to use that stool.
You know, when the Muslim community saw that, they didn't know who the heck we were. They were not expecting that at all. Isn't that kind of cool? Uncle Joe doesn't respond. Picks up the Rafushimpo off the top of a stack of papers. So there's another vigil coming up. It's in 3 months. And I really want you and Auntie to come. You can see a little bit more of the work I do.
I see your shows. Those are good.
I do other things too. I get to work with a lot of great people, good organizations. I'd like you to meet some of them and...
I stay out of those.
You know, it's a super insane time out there, Uncle Joe. Muslims, like anyone who looks Muslim, they're getting detained, beaten, taken away. It's the same kind of thinking that led to all of you being put in camp.
Yeah.
Uncle Joe turns to the second page of the paper. It's important to, Uncle Joe turns to the page again, to think about it, to consider. Uncle Joe turns the page. Now he is at the back of the paper, nose deep into the Japanese section of the Rafu. He cannot read Japanese. Uncle Joe starts to fold paper, begins to get up.
You know, I have thought about it. And if I were white back then, I would have put us away too.
Uncle Joe exits, leaves me with my breath caught in his past. End scene. Task, write something. Urgency level, high. Dedication, for every auntie and uncle of the American concentration camp who refuses to show up in solidarity against Islamophobia. Dedication for Uncle Joe. Timeline version A. 1. You were Buddhist. You spoke English and Japanese. 2. World War II. 3. Getting ready for mass removal of Japanese aliens and citizen aliens from the West Coast. You threw away all pictures, clothing, music, records, books, and personal mementos in reference to your parents' home country. 4. You started carrying the Bible. You stopped speaking Japanese. Timeline, version B. 1. You were Buddhist. You spoke American and Japanese. 2. December 7, 1941. 3. Getting ready for a mass removal, you threw away everything that made you look like what you look like. 4. You started carrying the Bible. You stopped speaking. Urgency level, extremely high. Form, letter, method of delivery, telegram, flag, flare, flyer on your windshield, metallic banner adhered to the side of your car, skywriting. December 2015. Dearest auntie and uncle, please forgive me and understand, but I would like to throw 70-year-old dust at your nose. I try to make bullets out of the old flag you hung up on your barracks. I tie your shoelaces too tight, hoping you will trip and fall. I will catch you before physical contact with the ground, but you will knock your head against your worst memories and fall into a pool of old truths. I string myself in a knot around your neck. I dangle there so you will bear the weight of this conversation for as long as I can hold myself around your waist. I admit, maybe this is too harsh. I suspect, or maybe I hope, you are just suffering early signs of dementia. All evidence points in that direction. You say that is a cruel thought. I say I agree. To forget where you came from, to pretend we didn't get help, to act like you didn't cash a redress check. Yes, that is cruel. You say we are talking about two different things. I say it's like two different people with a memory they wish they didn't share. The memory goes like this. The little girl ran outside and put up an American flag in hopes the FBI would return her father soon. I give myself permission as much as ever to be the thorn, to be your angry niece, to be the voice you can't get out of your head. I will allow myself to be the sore seed that multiplies on your lawn, a righteous oleander upon every sidewalk in Gardena, sago palm of protest hanging out in West LA, the annoying weed that defies the drought from Irvine to San Gabriel. I guess getting older didn't mellow me out. Did you know that half the people I talk to after a poetry reading tell me they never knew about you and where you were sent? You, as American as pie, they didn't know your hands were also at the rolling pin until your story became the simple dough, the crust that fell off the racks before they could open the oven door. You, your history, your struggle, all of this, all for naught, if all of you is forgotten. All of this makes me wish I could blame this on some lack of medication and a long strain of amnesia. Sincerely, yours, for better, for worse. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That was powerful, and it's so interesting when you have different people who don't know what everybody else is reading, and April reads her piece, and it's a companion to your piece, and I feel like something very interesting to me is also the ways that it's difficult to talk to our family about sort of inclusion, exclusion, their stories, and race and stuff and that kind of stuff. So I really feel like that for a lot. April sitting next to me, she's like, "Oh, that's like my uncle," or whatever she said. It was like awesome. So thank you very much. Our next reader is Leza Lowitz. She, first of all, well, I'll say that at the end. Leza is an award-winning writer, editor, screenwriter, and co-translator. Her work has appeared in the New York Times Mother Lode, Huffington Post, and the Best Buddhist Writing of 2011. She has published over 17 books. Her awards include the Penn Josephine Miles Award, a Penn Syndicated Fiction Award, grants from the NEA and NEH, and the Japan-U.S. Friendship Commission Prize for the translation of Japanese literature from Columbia University for America by Ayukawa Nobuo. She lives in Tokyo, where she owns the popular Sun and Moon yoga studio, and she just landed today from, I don't know where you came from, San Francisco, but I feel like, say that again. She just flew in from San Francisco to be with us, so everybody please welcome Leza.
Thank you, Sun-Young and Kaya, and it's really an honor to be here. It's especially an honor to be here to read the work of Ayukawa Nobuo, who probably no one here really knows. Maybe some of you do. But he was a Japanese poet who was born in 1920 and was a kind of romantic young man with literary aspirations. And he was introduced to the work of T.S. Eliot, whom he translated. And just as Eliot was disillusioned, I think, with Europe and England at that time, in the 1920s, Ayukawa and his friends were disillusioned with the militaristic, nationalistic way that Japan was moving. And it only got worse. So he was drafted into the war in 1942. And he was 22. His best friend died. He was sent to Burma. He got malaria, and he was put in a hospital ship. So I'm going to read 3 poems from this book, America. He always held America, even though he understood that America was built on the backs of many people who were unsung and exploited. He understood that, but he still held out America as sort of a dreamland of democracy and opportunity. The person I chose to read, the person of color that I chose to read from is James Baldwin. I grew up in Berkeley in the 1970s and went to Malcolm X school as a skinny white Jewish nerdy kid. I always got the shit kicked out of me. But the great thing that happened was the principal had these amazing people come speak to us, like Maya Angelou and James Baldwin. And I'll never forget. I don't even remember what they said, but I just remember their voices and the intensity. James Baldwin was such an intense, amazing person as a young, 5th grader sitting and listening. So this is from Giovanni's room. So it was really interesting. James Baldwin, an African-American gay man living in Paris in the 60s. Perhaps, as we say in America, I wanted to find myself. This is an interesting phrase, not current as far as I know in the language of any other people, which certainly does not mean what it says, but betrays a nagging suspicion that something has been misplaced. I think now that if I had any intimation that the self I was going to find would turn out to be only the same self from which I had spent so much time in flight, I would have stayed at home. But perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition. James Baldwin, Giovanni's room. So this first poem I'll read from Ayukawa Nobuo, which Kaya Press published about a decade ago. A room in a hospital ship. A hospital ship runs, sometimes heavy, sometimes light, to a distant, unknown motherland. This ship's compass will guide you, said the captain. But where to? To an illusory island country, neither Europe nor Asia. All that's visible from the thick glass porthole is the small, round sky and the sea. The complexion of this man is yellow, comes the doctor's careless pronouncement. As if fate had arrived at this face. Isn't it Japan that has been taken ill? Look, the yellow sun at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sea burns up in the heat, descent and an ominous ascending curve. Listen, the high waves echo and ring inside and out. It's time to trick God by vomiting bloody wine, falling into bed, and pretending to be dead. Quiet. Keep quiet. Open your eyes later when no one is looking. The light will disappear from our pupils. The death mask's shadow will be visible to the naked eye. The shadow that has been beside life all along. It's yellow, like that loathsome soul. Are there any doors in this darkness? Hands grope for handles. As long as more blood will be shed, it would be better to be a tube of human flesh than a human. But someone is peering in. The keyhole is an unblinking eye. Silence blocks the doorframe, gradually falling onto my chest. These eyes, which look hopefully for an exit, peer desperately through the keyhole that gazes back over to this side. See, mother, I want to desert. Door without a handle. Small keyhole. So after the war ended, Ayukawa was really the only person to want to keep the memory of the war alive and Japan's invasion of China and massacre and the truth about the war and how it started. And he really didn't have any other support from poets of his peers. They had all sort of jumped on the nationalist bandwagon. So 1972, this poem, old men, the soldiers, they all get together and they have this reunion. So this is amnesia. Army Comrades, it's called. Hey, it's been a while. I thought you'd forgotten. It's been 20 years, right? Don't give me that distant look. Come on, let's shake hands. For someone who's alive, your hands sure are cold. You remember, don't you? The bloody straits of Johore, the scorched hills of Bukit-Timah. Can't you hear the echo of destruction after destruction, the song of the cannon's roar, the final moments of the Navy port? Don't pretend to forget by turning your head, you fox who hides things in keyholes or inside books. Only in the past can we meet. There aren't any secrets. As soon as we were ordered, we lined up, making a forest of our black bayonets. We quietly went on our mission toward the enemy. We would become bones as night came to an end. Where has that dispassionate belief gone? That incarnation of purity that flows into the horizon, believing in the honor of the motherland and love for our brethren. Where did that disappear? This morning you spat into the sink again, green toothpaste mixed with blood. You respectfully tied your thin necktie and loaded your body, still warm from bed, onto the streetcar, going to work. For the sake of the little ones, I must earn a little money tomorrow and the next day too. If you can answer, please answer, O comrade with the chest of a pure white bridegroom. How big our defeat was, how small your victory. What alms did you receive from the enemy? What reparations did you make? What did you do for the miserable victims who lost ears, eyes, arms, legs? Hey, comrade, why do you keep silent? Looking straight this way, you don't see a thing. You said it would be okay as long as the social system was to your liking. Love of safety, retreat into idleness, dependence on the infinite possibility of compromise. Is this all that you've gained? Fighting in the sordid world of profit and loss, your friends, good at memory, sing in chorus, these are bad times. They complain to a hostess in a lonely bar that water doesn't turn into wine, that desire doesn't turn into more consumption. Brothers in arms hide behind a large tree trunk, their gray-flecked heads touching as they sleep, happily dreaming of a kingdom that fills the stomach with slumber. Fate counts all of you in a flash of light, though the storm never does. While I'm waiting for the end of this world. Goodbye, comrades, though this is our first real parting. I don't want the kiss of Judas anymore. See you around. And then this last one, which is a little bit different, 1977. As a Japanese man, I mean, which I'm married to one, but that's about as close as I'll ever get. Ayukawa, I think as a poet, was a feeling compassionate, very conflicted person. But yeah, this is called About Love. I'm Japanese, so I don't like to say or hear the word love. I've never told a woman, I love you. And I've never been told by a woman, I love you. So why is it that I consider myself lucky? If the words I love you had spilled from my mouth, I'd have been ruined by now. A liar's forked tongue cannot survive the utterance of a single honest phrase. People in the West say I love you out of habit. They might even say I love you instead of good morning. But the purity of the words is lost. Is love just a formality? Differences of customs and feelings are inevitable. Despite the abundance of foreign influence, I can't seem to make the word love my own. If I had, I would have been ruined by now. The word love, which means being unconditional, frightens me even now. It shakes me to the core. If everything I own is taken from me, I can't complain. If everything I ask for is given to me, I can't complain. Facing this inexplicable contract, there's just nothing to do but keep my mouth shut. Locked in the heart, forbidden, the I in my Japanese love is still a virgin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leza. And our next performer is Kat McDowell. Do you need time to set up? Do you want me to? Okay. Everybody just I'm going to read her bio while she sets up. Okay. So born in Tokyo and raised in New Zealand, Kat McDowell has always loved music. While drawing inspiration from artists like Foo Fighters and Jason Mraz, Kat's ocean pop sound is definitely her own. She mixes acoustic guitar-led melodies with emotionally transparent lyrics delivered in a blend of Japanese and English. And she's setting up, but everybody, while she's setting up, please welcome Kat McDowell. Yay!
Hi. Thank you for letting a musician into your literature club. It's so exciting to be here. So I wasn't aware that everyone was going to read something from a person of color. So it's just kind of impromptu, but I thought I could maybe do a verse from a songwriter who influenced me, and she actually inspired me to become a musician. I was listening to her live tapes that my mother had when I was 7 years old. I was living in New Zealand at the time, but still very Japanese because I spent until I was 5, I was living in Japan, and so I was listening to this Japanese folk singer-songwriter sing these songs, and I just imagined a live show. I guess it was a live tape. Thought, this is what I want to do. So I very excitedly went to Mom and said, Mom, I want to be a musician. And being Asian, she's very honest. She's like, no, maybe your brother could. She's like, I could be honest with you. I'm your mother. You're not very good. But yeah, it made me very stubborn. I wanted to prove her wrong. So this, I'll just do a short verse. This song's called Nagori Yuki, and it's by, it was actually originally by a different artist, but it was made famous by a singer-songwriter called Iruka in 1975. I released this in Japan, and I released a vinyl record of this, and it actually sold out in 2 days. I guess because people knew the song, but they weren't used to a reggae version, and they weren't used to English lyrics being added in, which I did, so this is my version of Nagoruki. As I sit with you waiting for your train, 時計を気にしてる季節外れの snowflakes begin to fall. 東京で見る雪へ Yes, I won't see this anymore 寂しそうに I saw a tear well in your eye 名残雪も knows exactly when to fall and the snow lingers on 季節の後で Darling, you were never more beautiful than you are right now. You could never be any more beautiful right now. Thank you. So this is my husband Masaki.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
And he's been very supportive, so supportive that he learned all these instruments so that we could tour together and play with me.
It's
so
actually
thank
pretty
you.
awesome. 'Cause I started playing instruments about 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we went on a 30-date tour across Japan and
60
dates, 60 days, 30 dates.
30 shows.
30 shows, and yeah.
And I was their driver and, you know, booking agent and accountant and masseuse and 7-Eleven shopping buddy and all that.
Yeah.
And that was fun, right?
It was fun.
Yeah.
And we really got to know each other very well.
I mean,
And,
really well.
And we started fighting a lot more because we were just together all the time. So this was actually written after we moved to LA. We moved to LA 2 or 3 years ago. And that's when we really started fighting. And Masaki disappeared for 2 days. We got into a big fight. I think I like crashed the car or something the day before, and you were already really tense.
Yeah, with a huge fight.
Yeah. And so he disappeared, gave me time to think a little bit, and so I wrote this song. And yeah. And you know, I think it's a song about forgiveness. I think forgiveness is all about inclusion. You can't forgive unless you can't include unless you forgive, and I think it starts with the people closest to you. So, you know, it's easy sometimes to focus on the people out there, but your home life could be an absolute mess. So, here's us trying to keep it together with the song "Human."
Trying.
One of those days I don't want to get out of bed. I just want to curl up and shut out all the voices in my head. Oh, yesterday's dragged into another day. I want to leave it behind and cut the line, but I instead of butterflies. Don't need to be taught how to fly them. Surely I can forgive you if you and I can put all these differences aside. Then surely we can be human. To find a new well to break the spell. A bitter clouds hung over me. Oh, with butterflies don't need to be taught how to fly. Then surely I can forgive you if you and I put all these differences aside. But surely we can be human. Ooh.
them. If birds in the sky could spread out their wings and know how to fly, oh, then surely I know how to love you. If you and I can put all these differences aside, then surely we can be, oh, surely we can be human, yes, we can be human. We can be human. We can be human.
Thank you. All right, one more song. The song is still hard for me to sing sometimes. It's a song that took me a year to write, and Masaki and I were still living in Japan, and on March 11th, 2011, and we were in Tokyo at the time and felt the biggest earthquake of my life, and it was the scariest week of my life, just kind of seeing all this stuff happen in my city, but knowing that it was so much worse up north. But there was no access, and everything was just a scrambled mess. And then people overseas were freaking out even more than the people inside Japan. They're like, get out, get out. And I'm like, what's going on? So it was a crazy moment. But then in the months that followed, I would go up. I didn't really know what to do. I guess they really needed people to dig mud out. They didn't really need people with guitars. But would still, go up there with my musician friends and try and do something. So I would go up, and I would, we played in schools where it was just crazy. There would still be dust all over the floor, and then right next to the school there was a graveyard with cars still kind of upside down and all over the place, and there would be army trucks everywhere, and would play to people who were beautiful but hurting so much and just looking for some kind of form of connection and some kind of normalcy. But I know that a lot of people went up there, and even now we've made all these new friends. We go there, and a lot of people are like, well, we don't want to say we're thankful for, but because of what happened, we made so many new friends and new opportunities, and so there are a lot of people now who are very positive and looking forward to the future and are doing amazing things because of what happened 5 years ago. So anyway, I got the courage to write this song when I went to New Zealand, which is where my dad's from. And a year after the earthquake, I couldn't write for a year because I didn't know what to write about. I went to New Zealand, went down to Christchurch, and even though I don't really have family down there, we had some friends. We stayed with some friends. That whole city had been destroyed only 2 weeks before what happened in Japan. We went there, but to see the art, because New Zealand is a great, funny people. They have a great sense of humor. I don't know if you've ever seen John Oliver's stuff, but if you watch any of that, you would know that New Zealand is a little crazy. And they just have a great sense of humor and just full of life and full of color. So I was very inspired when I went to Christchurch, which had been destroyed, and yet they'd built up this colorful container city, which was just beautiful. And I was inspired by the art there, and realized that we as storytellers, there's so many other storytellers here, that we have this gift of stories that we can share and bring life to people and bring courage to people. So I'm very grateful that I get to do this for a living. I get to share stories, and I'm so inspired by other storytellers, so I'm happy to be here tonight. But anyway, my courage came from going to New Zealand and seeing art bring people to life, and I realized that I needed to tell the story of the people in northern Japan and tell a story of strength and of hope amidst all of that chaos. So this song is called 311.
Three and 11, was the day the ocean took my house away. Dust in the air, the sound of smoke, the taste of fear, the seagulls cry. I found your photo in the mud. You had the same old cheeky grin. The blurry scenes run down my cheek. The silent cries, so deafening. Oh Lord, please tell me. I know that you're out there. Won't you comfort me? So many lives, so many questions, so many rivers of tears run to the ocean. What is my life? Why am I here? I'm on the search to find it now, till my final breath. Chaos stumbled into night, a mother looking for a child. The images come flooding in, can't make it stop, can't take it back. The stars that glitter up the sky, I've never seen them shine this way. Our darkest night, we lost our light, but you were there, you never left. Oh Lord, please show me how to heal the scars and the heart suffering. Another life, another reason, another hope for us, another season. What is my life? Why am I here? I'm on the search to find it now. It's not over yet. It's not over yet.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kat. I just feel so lucky to be in this room. So thank you so much for that and that story. Our next reader is David Mura. He is a writer, memoirist, poet, and performance artist who brings a unique perspective to our multiracial and multicultural society. A third-generation Japanese American, he has written intimately about his life as a man of color and the connections between race, sexuality, and history. In public appearances, interweaving poetry, performance, and personal testament, he provides powerful insights into the racial issues facing America today. His most recent book is called The Last Incantations, and we had some, fried chicken in New York once at the same table, and he's just... one thing I want to mention about him is that he's a teacher and a mentor for VONA, which is an organization that serves writers of color, and is such a kind of I was very struck by his generosity and just availability and kindness. So everybody, please return that kindness. Everybody, please welcome David Mura.
Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be part of this reading, and everybody that's read or performed today, I feel a connection with. And I just, as a Japanese American, you're used to being a small minority even within Asian Americans. And I grew up like April in the Midwest, where there weren't a lot of other Asian Americans. So it's great. I don't know why I want to mention this, but I feel like a little overdressed. But it's like I come to the Japanese American National Museum. I have inside me what I call the good Japanese American boy named Kenji. And there's a constant war between the Devil David and Kenji. Anyway, so my piece that I picked out to read, I had 3 older women who served as sort of like godmothers or mothers to me in writing. One was Wakako Yamauchi, who, it was great. You know, I met her and she was so warm and welcoming, and she just affirmed for me that I could write my own truth, which was so valuable. And the other 2 were Gwendolyn Brooks and Lucille Clifton. And it always struck me so much that these 2 black poets, great black poets, welcomed me as part of their poetic family. So this is one of Lucille's most famous poems, Won't You Celebrate With Me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it here, up here, on the bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. I thought of reading this poem just after reading Lucille's. I don't know if some of you may know this. Camilla Brock, who is a New York banker, this is from the Huffington Post, the article. Camilla Brock says that the New York City police sent her to a mental hospital for a hellish 8 days where she was forcefully injected with powerful drugs, essentially because they couldn't believe a black woman owned a BMW. So this is in the voice of Camilla, who was arrested just driving in New York. Camilla. Pulled up at the traffic light, bouncing in my Beamer, Beyonce blaring, to the left, and I should have noticed him drawing up. What are you doing with your hands off the wheel? And I say, I'm dancing. Clearly not the right answer, because he's asking me to step out the car, and suddenly I'm in a van. My car's towed. And after 3 hours in a cell, I was never charged. And when I showed the next day and they asked the make, I answered, a BMW. A minute later, I'm in handcuffs, still thinking, well, if that's what it's going to take to get my car. And they drag me outside. An EMS hauls up. They say they're taking me to my car. In an EMS? And they say, yeah. And I'm confused. Wouldn't you be confused? And the next thing, at the Harlem hospital, they're injecting me, lithium, and I blacked out, woke, roped to a gurney, they stripping off my clothes, even my underwear, so I'm lying there naked as the day I was born, drugged to high heaven, and still grogging the next day when they asked me why I'm there. And I say, I was trying to get my BMW. And they say, you don't own a BMW. And I say, I'm a banker. And they say, you're not a banker. M2, I say. I bought that BMW with my own money. I know famous people. And they say, like who? And I say, well, Barack Obama follows me on Twitter. And they can't help but chuckle. Camilla, you know you don't know no Barack Obama. You don't own no BMW. You're not a banker. And I keep telling them, I do. I am. I do. I am. And they say, Camilla, you want to get out of here? You want us to free you? Just tell the truth. And they inject me again and again. And days pass. And times I thought, maybe you are crazy. Maybe you don't own the BMW. Maybe you aren't a banker. Maybe Barack Obama doesn't follow you. Only If a black man could be president of the United States, why couldn't I own a BMW? Why aren't I a banker? Why doesn't he follow me on Twitter and Facebook and anything else I happen to be on? And I knew this was madness, so when I got back my phone, I screened them photos, videos of me with Charlie Rangel, Audrey McDonald, and yes, even Beyonce. And one of the nurses muttered, wait a minute. And by the next day, I was free. Only when I came back to my apartment, I didn't go get my BMW. Didn't go to work, didn't Twitter, didn't do anything but sleep and sleep in my own bed, if it was my own bed, in my own apartment, if it was my apartment. And I dreamed of the life I used to have, if it was my life, if I was Camilla or someone else whose life was truer and blacker than mine, who could never dance in her car because she had no car and was freer because she had nothing but the skin she was born in, naked, dancing everywhere else. Now, to me, that poem connects with this poem, which is an old poem of mine, which is a letter from an internment camp. It's written from an Nisei to his wife, and he's separated in another camp. Many of you know what a biwa is. It's a Japanese stringed instrument. Matsuo's he's bruised because he was fighting with the other Japanese Americans about how to respond to the camps. Letters from an internment camp. Dear Michiko, do songs sound different in prison? I think there are more spaces between the words. I think when the silence ends, when the song ends, the silence does not stop singing. I think there is nothing but song. Matsuo's back. His bruises almost healed, a tooth missing. His biwa comes out again with the stars, a nightly matter. He sends his regards. Do you get fed these putrid gray beans? I hope you haven't swallowed too many of them. They put my stomach in a permanent revolt, shouting no emperor should ever feed his people so harshly. I agree. Let's you and I grow skinny together. Let's keep the peace. Any second, the lights will go out. I look around and see many honest men who hide their beauty as best they can. I think that's what the whites hate, our beauty. The way we carry the land and life of plants inside them, seedlings and fruit, flowers in the fresh tree, fields freed of weeds. Why can't they see the doors inside them? Sa. If someone found an answer to that, they would find an answer to why those who are hungry and cold go off to battle to become hungrier and colder, farther from home. 9 o'clock, the lights all out. Sometimes, Michiko, I think of my greenhouse. How I used to stand at night in its freshly steaming dark and say, these are the most beautiful orchids and roses in the world. And their fragrance seeped inside me, stayed even when I sold them. What is it like now in Tokyo? They say it has sunk like a great ship. Forgive me. Blessed with the chance to talk to my wife, more beautiful than any greenhouse rose, all I can do is moan. And yet, if I didn't tell you, I would be angry at you for not listening, blaming you for what I haven't spoken. And it's too late for that. When you write back, please tell me what country I'm in. I feel so poor now. These words are all I own. After he got out of the camps, a relative, took a psychological test to apply for a job. So this is about this test. Internment camp psychology, circa 1945. Just after his release, Moss took a psychological test. 3 questions he never forgot. Do you think you are being followed? Do you think people are out to get you? When you see a crowd of strangers walking towards you, do you try to avoid them? To all 3, he answered yes, and knew he sounded insane. My son has had 2 Somali American girlfriends. So this is about the first one and about what happened when her parents found out. My son at 9th grade. Overnight grown so towering, head woolly with long curls, he'll stare me down eye to eye. A black wisp over his lip he won't shave. Hip-hop on iPod, beats on GarageBand, poems on his MacBook, and nights beneath the sheets whispering through his cell to Fatima, a 21st century down-low romance, her father and brothers would shut down like a house of plague if they discovered. I pass his door. His voice lowers. What does she see in him and he in her? Only it's not sight there in the dark, but the words shuttling between them, old as Romeo and Juliet, sharks and jets, Buddha and Mohammed, in the mad, crazy years we live in where this young love fights to flourish. 2 weeks later, her brother shouts the alarm to her father and mother. Now there's a line that cannot be crossed, and still I hear my son behind his door weeping and whispering in the dark, voices on the line, their secrets aboard. Once a white boy fell in love with my aunt. Shipped to the camps, she never kissed him again. Oji-san disapproved, still from Japan. 5 young Somali men shot or knifed last year in our precinct. Others vanished to Mogadishu, warlords, civil strife. The FBI, the police, what do they know? Fathers, mothers, where's your daughter, your son? Children, all this began so long ago. Tonight, as I make our bed, my son sneaks in, leaps my back with his heavy new body, and with war yelps wrestles me to the sheets. Of course, I don't let him beat me. Grunting back, I toss him off like the years, grapple his torso down, pinion each young wing, though even as he cries out, I give, assenting to the Father, I cannot grip him tight enough. I cannot let go. This last poem is again about my son's connection with the Somali community. And this is about a friend of his who was shot this summer. It also comes out of, I was talking to 4 of his Somali friends, and they didn't know that that the Japanese Americans had been interned during World War II. But when I told them the same things that are said now about Arab and Muslim Americans were said about Japanese Americans, they went, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So this is about my son's friend whose father happened to be a poet, and his mother was in Mogadishu when his father was dying in Mogadishu when my son's friend was shot. It's called Poem for Abdi. 10:35 p.m. Gnats and mosquitoes blurring street lights in the parking lot of the Coil Rec Center. And Abdi smoking, chilling, just after the lights slipped away on this near solstice. And the lines he's on fleek flow through that girl he passed at the Mall of America, the apartment he'll go back to without his mother, return to Mogadishu to aid his dying poet father, heart failing without metaphor. And Abdi thinks, tomorrow I'll be breaking Ramadan. As the beats my son Nico laid down for him start to jump. My brain ain't neurological, beyond ecological. I've torched the devil's follicles, stroking his blood-red tail, thinking where we failed and where a bullet sails, lurking late for Ishmael. 3 shots, pop, pop, pop. Here's only the first behind him in his head, his lines, that girl, Ismail, his mother, and the feast off Ramadan all explode from his skull into the June night as he topples. And suddenly there's 2 black brothers over him, smashing at his chest. And he's not even thinking, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And the streetlights above burn fluorescence into his retina, gnats, mosquitoes, and a strange yellow glow just before the red, the red, the red. The red. And he'll never witness his brother, his sister, Jamila, his friends, Bedan and Khadija, my son, Nico, hunkered in the waiting room as the surgeons huddled 2 hours to undo what can't be done. And 3 days later, Nico stands with Abdi's friends and family. The mother just returned from Somalia, his father still dying, unable to fly. And there is no coffin to cover his sleeping face as he's lowered 2 graves from Baden's brother. And my son grips his shaking girlfriend, and as he looked at Abdi's mother, the only Somali mother, he says, who ever accepted him, even loved him, Nico thinks of the track Abdi and he jammed on, the album they'd planned, and how just hours early at work when he told his boss of his friend's death, his boss shot back, well, that's what you get for hanging around with those people. And how did they get to be my son's people? And how am I to comfort my son weeping before me now in my study, or chastise him for using my wife's credit card to help buy the mother's plane fare and a bus ticket for another friend to leave for Fargo so he doesn't become one more Abdi? And my son saying he looked at the mother's face falling into her son in the grave, and he wanted to rip the clouds from the sky, rip his boss's hair from their follicles, cut the tracks of their album that will never be finished, and the kids in school shouting at Abdi, look at me, I'm the captain, and hey, Mohammed suicide bomber. And my son saying, I can't believe he's dead. I can't take it in. And I'm holding as Abdi will never be held by his mother. His father, the poet, dying in Mogadishu. And I can't say I hate this world as much as you, Nico, though that too is in my heart. And so I say, his life was not his death. Your friendship was not his death. His music was not his death. And so I say, listen, he's still rapping. Those lines are still there. He's still talking to you. What is he saying? And Nico, as his body shakes in my arms, he'd want me. He'd want me to be happy. And I see Abdi's face standing beside us. And I tell him, thank you, Abdi. Thank you for saving my boy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And our final reader is going to be one of you, springing up. Because, Gene Oishi really wanted to make it out to this reading. I really wanted to sort of bring his words into the room. And the piece that I chose for one of you was something that reminded me, I didn't grow up in a JA household. I'm a first, my parents immigrated to the U.S. from Vietnam. But this piece in Fox Drum Bebop really reminded me of just, watching my brother grow up. And I am going to, everybody conjuring up Gene Oishi. Okay, so please welcome the hologram of Gene Oishi, Ed Lin.
I'm probably a lot larger than Gene. I just have my fat and my funny. That's all I've got. Hey, you ever go to a reading and end up becoming one of the readers? Only at a Kaya-sponsored event would this happen. But I will try to hold myself to the high standard that has been set tonight. It's been incredible, really, just watching from the wings, as is said. And Gene, this goes out to you. We're thinking of you, and we'll see you soon. For most of his adolescence, Mickey's teachers considered him a problem child. He wasn't inclined toward schoolwork, and he was always getting into fights. Not only was he quick and agile, he was unusually strong. His Japanese schoolmates admired him because he stood up to Mexican bullies. But his teachers, accustomed to well-mannered, docile Japanese children, thought him an incorrigible ruffian. Once he got to Santa Margarita, where all the children from Hacienda went to high school, Mickey's pugnacity, overabundance of physical energy, and what turned out to be exceptional athletic ability became huge assets. Not only did he have the audacity to try out for the football team, Japanese kids generally avoided calling attention to themselves in that way, he made varsity. The coach could hardly believe this remarkable find. Mickey could run the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds flat, carrying a football and in full uniform. He was physically aggressive, mentally tough, and endowed with unusual agility and balance. By 16, he was 5'8", bigger than most of his friends, and even if the Hakujin still considered him small. They called him a scatback, one of those runners who could cut and weave and reverse his field, leaving behind a wake of fallen tacklers. By his junior year, Mickey was being scouted by USC, Cal, and Stanford. Mickey's status as an athlete made high school tolerable for him, but things were different at the Japanese school, which was conducted in the monastic atmosphere of the Buddhist church every weekday afternoon. The hour Mickey was forced to spend there under the stern, hovering presence of Kubota Sensei was agony for him. Unlike Sammy, Mickey had no interest in reading or writing Japanese. His spoken Japanese was broken and childlike, and he frequently had to resort to English words and phrases even when talking to his parents. So when Father happened to see a picture of Mickey in a football pose, one knee up, right hand extended stiffly, in the Santa Margarita Gazette, it was Sammy that Father had gone for an exclamation. Father was stunned when Sammy explained that Mickey occupied a unique place in the Hakujin community. He was a football sensation, not only in Santa Margarita, but also in the three-county region. Hearing this, Father decided to decided to go the following Saturday to see for himself what this game of football was about. Yukio and Sammy were to go with him. Sammy to explain the game, and Yukio to help Sammy in and out of the car. Santa Margarita was being pegged as a contender for the championship that year, so the bleachers were jammed by the time the Konos arrived. It was a chilly autumn day. Dressed in a suit and tie, covered by a dark woolen overcoat and sporting a gray fedora, Father, who didn't own what one would call casual wear, looked utterly out of place. Yukio and Sammy, who wore pea coats with woolen caps pulled over their ears, might have done a better job of fitting in were it not for Sammy's wheelchair. All in all, they made an odd-looking trio. The Santa Margarita side of the stands was already full, so they made their way to the opponent's side, which was less densely packed. Father and Yukio carried Sammy halfway up one end of the bleachers, where a group of older couples who looked like parents made room for them. "My boy, Mikio, he play for Santa Margarita," Father said to his neighbor, a middle-aged, crinkly-eyed Hakujen. "We," the man replied, pointing to himself and the woman next to him, "are from Paso Robles." He spoke slowly and clearly, as one does to foreigners. Father smiled and nodded to indicate he understood, so the man continued, "Our son," again pointing to himself and his wife, "plays for Paso Robles. There," he said, pointing to the visitor's bench. "Are you related to Mickey Kono?" he asked. Father said. "Yes, Mikio Kono, my son. You must be very proud," the man said. Father made no response. Santa Margarita won the coin toss and elected to receive. Mickey was the kick returner. "There," Sammy said, pointing to him, "standing alone in the back, number 22, Father. He'll be the one who catches the ball." Mickey received the ball on the 15-yard line, and after weaving to the left and then to the right, he seemed to be running free. The stands on the Santa Margarita side of the field erupted in wild cheers, but when Mickey was subsequently trapped by a gang of opposing players who pummeled him to the ground in a mound of flaying arms and legs, the crowd on their side rose to its feet and cheered. Even the friendly man and his wife joined in. Father was horrified, but he remained silent, as he did through most of the game, only occasionally asking, "Where is Mikio now?" Santa Margarita played the single wing, and Mickey was the tailback. But those were details beyond Father's understanding or concern, so Sammy simply said, "He's the one in the back, Father, the one who gets the ball." For the rest of the afternoon, Father's brow remained fixed and furrowed, his jaw clenched, his hands clasped together in a tight ball at his waist as he watched hulking, leather-hardened boys ram butt and throw his son to the ground. Mickey would run as if for his life, but he would inevitably be caught and knocked down, whereupon 2, 3, or even 4 others would pounce upon his fallen and helpless body. Then, having crushed Mickey, his opponents would bounce up triumphantly, celebrating their savagery by slapping one another's backs and buttocks, as the barbarian couple sitting beside Father clapped and shouted encouragement. The few times Mickey managed to evade his pursuers and return to the safety of his teammates, the couple groaned, while the Santa Margarita side roared with happiness and pleasure. "It is barbaric," Father said when he got home. "I will not allow it. It is not a sport for a Japanese boy. All they do is knock each other down. They run and throw their bodies full force into one another. One boy had to be carried off the field. He might have been killed. No, it is no sport for Mikio. It is not a sport for a Japanese boy. Mother had not seen the game, but was shocked all the same. Why did we not know? She said, looking accusingly at her husband. Why were we not told? Mikio must not play such a dangerous sport. Why do the Americans allow such things? The evening meal that Saturday was unusually quiet, but Mickey didn't notice. After the excitement and the exertion of the game, he was hungry and still flushed from the afterglow of his 2 touchdown runs. Masako-san had prepared fresh sea perch in her usual way with soy sauce, sugar, and ginger. There was also steamed tofu with bonita flakes and the usual assortment of pickled cabbage, cucumbers, and radishes. Mickey preferred to eat meat, but he ate heartily nonetheless, nevertheless, using his chopsticks to shovel rice drenched in fish sauce into his mouth. He had a distant look on his face as he chewed. Mikio, Father said, I went to see you play football today. Mickey no doubt heard the edge in Father's voice, but he still had not made the transition from the world of football to the family table. He looked up, half expecting the usual congratulatory praise. I did not know that football was such a brutal sport. If I had known, I would never have allowed you to play. I would have told Isamu to call your school on Monday to inform them that you will no longer play the game. Mickey looked at Sammy as if betrayed. Sammy and Mickey had never been close. Before Sammy was crippled by polio, he'd excelled in school and in his Japanese studies, and his parents had constantly held him up as a model for Mickey to emulate. Why can't you be more like Isamu? They would say. But ever since Sammy's illness confined him to a wheelchair, Mickey, the athlete, was embarrassed by his invalid brother, preferring to pretend he didn't exist. You can't do that, Sammy, he shouted. Tell him you can't do that. We're going to the league championship this season. They're counting on me. Tell him you can't do that. Tell him yourself, Sammy said. You speak Japanese. You talk of your father in his presence, Father exploded. Speak to me directly if you have something to say. Speak Japanese. You're still a member of this family. You are Japanese. Speak Japanese. Father, there is no danger, Mickey said in his broken Japanese. Even Hiroshi spoke better. Mickey had trouble explaining his importance to the team. He tried number 1 in English and then ichiban, its Japanese equivalent. When that didn't seem to get across, he tried taisho, which meant great leader or general. A ludicrous overstatement of his importance to the team. He stumbled valiantly on, trying to explain the league and the state championship, but the more he talked, the more he realized that none of what he was saying had any meaning to his father. Sammy, he finally said in desperation, explain it to him, please, Sammy. Sammy knew it was futile, but he did the best he could for Mickey. Father, if Mikio stops playing, it will reflect badly on all Japanese. If he doesn't play, the Hakujin will say that he was afraid. The Hakujin like football because it is dangerous. They need it to prove their courage. If Mikio refuses to play, they will call him a coward. As Sammy had expected, Father was not impressed by such convoluted logic. He went straight to the point. Mikio will stop playing not because he is afraid, but because I will not allow him to play. We will make that clear. I will ask our lawyer to write a letter to the school so there can be no misunderstanding. Mickey opened his mouth to speak, but Sammy told him with a glance to shut up. Both knew that when father made up his mind about such matters, arguing further was not just useless, it was dangerous. Mickey's football career ended that evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gene Oishi. Everybody give him a big round of applause. Just want to say thank you so much for coming out on this Tuesday night in the kind of spitting rain in LA. Everybody from out of town, welcome to LA. It is never like this, but you got here on this date. And I just wanted to say, maybe, I know it's late, but, there are books out there, and please do support our authors. Edlin will be singing at the Litoroki event, 9 p.m. on Friday, so please support Edlin. And everybody, there's a lot of people in the room, I hope everybody gives each other hugs, even strangers, and have a good night. Thank you very much.